Hello everyone, this is winter 2019 end of quarter research talk. Today I'm going to talk about my dissertation prospectus coordinating opportunistic contributions to achieve globally effective outcomes in on-the-go crowdsourcing. So volunteer-based social computing and crowdsourcing systems allow to collect unique contributions at scale. For example, millions of people are editing and writing articles for Open Encyclopedia and eBird, the citizen science. Birders collect data at a large scale to help scientists conduct scientific inquiries. For example, the amount of data that interested birders collect are huge that individual scientists can't even fathom to collect. And like ways, drivers or passengers collect map data or traffic information to help people understand the real-time traffic information. And like civic journalism, like citizens gather information to help news organizations to cover smaller local events. A key challenge in enabling such systems is to attract enough willing helpers, because when you don't have enough users, we don't have any artifacts or services that can be provided to attract people. And we also need to be able to make useful contributions for quality of services. If we allow people to make contributions like whenever or like whichever task, then we can't really meet the system needs to provide a quality of service. So one approach that we can take is that we can rely on the dedicated contributions. So the benefits of relying on dedicated contributions is that volunteers can provide high quality of services. And because they can coordinate tasks among themselves, they can respect or ensure the community members' experience and needs. And they might also form like stronger relationships and communities through interactions and discussions among these dedicated volunteers. However, there are some drawbacks. It's difficult to attract dedicated volunteers at scale. One of the main reasons that many interested volunteers don't or can't contribute is due to time. And it's also related to time, but planning and coordination costs is one of the main deterrents that prevent people from participating in these kind of volunteer-based systems. So in the other at the another end of spectrum, we might rely on these flexible contributions. So volunteers can contribute whenever or whichever task that they want to contribute, so that it's convenient for them, it's easy for them to contribute. It also requires less coordination or planning costs, because volunteers don't have to take time to coordinate or plan. And there's also no commitment. Volunteers don't have to make any commitments. They can just do whenever they feel like it. However, this kind of flexibility can lead to low quality of services, because they can contribute to whichever task that they're interested in, or at times that they want to contribute, it might not ensure that tasks are done on time, or ensure all the tasks are being fulfilled. And another problem here is that there's lack of notion of community member needs or experience, because we are asking people to flexibly contribute whenever and whichever. And the core challenge there is that deciding who and how often to engage people to participate in such a way that we can guarantee the community member needs and their experience. And last drawback is that because all these flexible contributions are lightweight, low effort, and then it happens on the go, like in the moment. There's lack of interactions among volunteers, and we don't have this community building, the stronger community aspects as we could see from this dedicated volunteers or the contributions. So to draw both the benefits of the dedicated contributions and in order to reach out to a large number of people where so to draw benefits of both dedicated contributions and then the flexible contributions, in this research, we asked these overarching research questions. So in volunteer-based social computing and crowdsourcing systems, how can we elicit flexible, opportunistic contributions that can provide flexibility and convenience to volunteers while still ensuring quality of services to achieve globally effective outcomes? However, there's a core challenge in providing flexibility while still ensuring the quality of services. For example, in order to provide convenience and flexibility, a system may use this pool-based approach, which led users to check a list of available tasks and choose when and how they want to contribute. But as we discussed before, this kind of flexibility can hurt the quality of service because there's a mismatch between the individual needs and then the system needs. And to make more effective use of volunteer efforts, we may use push-based approach, which actively routes important tasks to users. But the problem here is that deciding like, who and when to engage might have a consequences in like how things are get done, who do get engaged. So to overcome the limitations of these approaches, we introduce our core conceptual approach. The idea of providing flexible opportunistic contributions which people can decide whether or not to take actions that can seamlessly fit into people's existing routine or routes in such a way that the performed actions are effective in reaching global outcomes. So throughout the talk, we'll discuss 3 global outcomes that we care about. So the first desired outcome is increasing task efficiency to improve the quality of service. So the core challenge here is that among set of tasks that people might be able to contribute, we have to choose a task that can best maximize user effort given uncertainty in when and which tasks they may be willing and able to help. And existing approaches, for example, like task routing and task allocation, they either consider users' current context or solution space, which might lead to underutilizing like, user efforts, or when in fact they might be able to being more effective in the future. Or we can consider, or there are approaches that consider future user context, but they tend to pre-assign tasks or plans. So this kind of rigid strategies are against the flexibility and convenience that we want to provide to volunteers. So we ask to overcome these challenges, we ask how can we maximize individual opportunity contributions towards desired system outcomes. So we introduce, to answer this research question, we introduce opportunistic hit or wait, which uses decision theory to decide on the fly whether to notify a helper of a task right now or wait for better opportunities in the future in ways that reason both about systems needs across tasks and then about a helper's changing patterns of ability. And findings from our simulations and user studies shows that the opportunistic hitter way can implicitly coordinate opportunistic contributions towards the desired system outcomes without having to cause inconvenience or disruption to the helper's routines or routes. So the core challenge in balancing the needs of systems and community experiences that we have to decide who, when, how often to engage volunteers with tasks in a community in a way that the system can provide quality of services while still ensuring experience to build sustainable systems. The core tension here is that prioritizing one value is likely to affect the other value. For example, similar to the dedicated world, to achieve the quality of services, we may distribute help among helpers who are or who may become available. But the problem here is that because volunteers' availability is changing and depending on the how often the person becomes available, we may overload certain helpers and hurt their experience. This is bad because these people are not dedicated, and if we overload them, they might leave the system. Then, to ensure their volunteer experience, we might ask like minimum number of tasks across people and distribute the task across community members. But the consequence here is that the tasks may not get done or get done late, and which will hurt the quality of services. So to address these issues, our second research question asks, how can we balance and meet both contributor experience and quality of services at global level in order to build a sustainable volunteer-based systems? So to answer this question, we introduce opportunistic supply management, which is a general decision theoretic framework that decides an optimal strategy that can best balance or prioritize different individual and system needs to achieve intended community goals by simulating over and comparing possible outcomes that can be reached by enacting a strategy among a set of strategies. So what it can achieve is that even when the task needs and the volunteer availability are changing, it can provide these custom tailored strategies that can provide optimal solutions depending on the situations on the ground. And the goal of our evaluation is to understand how opportunistic supply management's new way of setting an optimal policy that elicits user contributions to achieve global goals works. And to do that, we'll conduct a simulation study and then the field deployment in the context of community-based peer-to-peer delivery scenario. And we want to test the following claims through our simulation study and field deployment. First is opportunistic supply management is effective in finding optimal policies to meet the desired outcomes when demand is varying because of its ability to simulate over and select a custom tailored policy that can provide this bounded resource solution for varying demands. And our second claim is that because due to the model inaccuracy, we might have some performance loss, but to partially compensate for such performance loss, supply management can dynamically adjust policies to adapt to current situations on the ground to maximize the global outcomes if actual realized outcomes are different from the predicted outcomes. And our last claim is that supply management allows for encoding different values that reflect what systems and then volunteers care about, and providing optimal strategies that can respect and balance such values. The implication of this is that supply management will be able to form different kind of services or communities depending on how we set the values or which values that we want to emphasize. And to measure our claims, we will assess the performance by looking at both the values computed with the value function in the supply management, and then for the performance measures, we'll look at actual outcomes such as the test completion time or the test completion number of task completion and number of notifications sent to the helpers, or the distribution of help across the helpers. And our third desired outcome is increasing social relationship through these flexible contributions and interactions. The core challenge is that deciding who to engage in a task in a way that task is convenient for the volunteers and task is important to reach the quality of service, and the interaction between the helper and then the requester can strengthen their relationship. For example, we may want to get a task done quickly, but the helpers who can help right now may not be the person who can who needs to form this kind of relationship with the requester. On the other hand, you might wait for some helpers who do need to have more interactions with the requesters to strengthen their relationships, but by waiting for these helpers to show up, we might compromise the quality of services. And while previous research showed that how this kind of introduction of new communication or the new technology can strengthen relationships among requesters and helpers, we do not know how we can leverage this kind of flexible contributions, low effort opportunity contributions to build stronger communities and social capital in volunteer-based social computing and crowdsourcing systems. And to do this, we will adopt heater-wave framework to encode the value of increasing social capital through the repeated interactions and then the value of task completion, and make decisions of whether to notify people to complete tasks now or wait for better candidates to show up in the future. And in the context of community-based peer-to-peer delivery scenario, we'll conduct a longitudinal study to understand how these opportunistic, flexible contributions can help build community by strengthening the existing relationship and encouraging new interactions among people to increase social capital. The study will last 1 or 2 months, and we will recruit people from 3 different communities where they might know each other, but they're not that close. So we're trying to look at how these kind of flexible contributions can help them build stronger relationships. So here we have 3 claims that we want to test. First one is that opportunistic flexible contributions will allow people to help build weak ties with familiar strangers and expand their network. And this will open up opportunities for further interactions outside of the system. For example, like people started interacting with others and maybe greet each other in a hallway. Our second claim is that opportunistic, flexible interactions can create new opportunities for people to interact with one another more often and allow them to strengthen and maintain their network. And our last claim is that people help other participants more due to this generalized reciprocity, and people will feel more like being part of this broader community. And for the measures, there are different ways of measuring social capital. People use tie strength or the communication or interaction frequency or the reciprocity to measure social capital. So we will use all these measures both pre and post study and try to see whether or not there's a difference in these measures. And Newton and Resnick also said that this social capital is kind of like a cyclical process. So when you start building a social capital and these feedback into your existing relationship, and then it reinforcing your behavior and then the interactions. So for this kind of process, it's hard for us to have one concrete measure. So we will also conduct semi-structured interviews to see whether or not this kind of cyclical process exists during our study. So my dissertation proposal or dissertation have these expected contributions. So our core conceptual contribution is the idea of providing this flexible opportunity contributions that can seamlessly fit into people's existing routines and routes in such a way that the performed actions are effective in reaching global outcomes. And we discuss throughout the talk, we discuss the three outcomes that we want to reach. And to realize our core conceptual contributions, we also introduce our technical contribution, which is a decision theoretic approach that reasons about strategies under scarce resources that can achieve optimal outcomes under uncertainty. And our technical contribution is largely inspired by Eric Corbett's flexible computation. It thinks about when the resources are scarce and there's uncertainty in availability of resources, how can we make the optimal decisions? And then the broader impact of my dissertation is that there's a potential to increase the number of people who are willing and able to participate in such systems and help each other in a community where participation could become a part of reaching these effective collective goals and could result in increased social capital. Thank you.